Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the all-new Cryptids of the Week video. For this particular entry, I was heavily inspired by an image that I saw while I was just perusing some stuff for my Patreon channel. So when I came across this image, it was one of those things, just like a sudden impulse buy where it told me I will definitely talk about this next. And if I recall correctly, a couple of years back, some of you had suggested this entry as well. Never really got around to it, but now, in this case, what a perfect way to be able to talk about it here. And it'll make an excellent companion piece to my very first video ever. So the very first one I ever did was BLOOP. That was the one that started it all. That's basically the genesis of my Cryptids and Monsters series. So in this case, now we're dealing with a creature that may be many times larger than BLOOP itself. And what a way, almost like a sequel, to be able to highlight this video here in comparison with BLOOP. And I'll include the link for my original BLOOP video below as well if you haven't had a chance to see it. I was listening to it the other day and I thought to myself, wow, how things have changed when it came to the production of my videos. But yes, let's go ahead and let's talk about this creature here, this cryptid of the week. It, for lack of a better term, is known by this name only, Julia. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating and mysterious info associated with this creature of almost gigantic mythic portions. So what is this Julia? Unfortunately, there is no true, let's say 100% photo or less, let alone video associated with this creature. No eyewitnesses, nothing in terms of even like written documents associated with it. Instead, the only known closest evidence you could find tied to this creature was apparently taken on March 1st, 1999 through a sound that was recorded. So here's essentially what happened. On March 1st, 1999, how about that? A little over 20 years now when it comes to this anniversary, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's department, they were in turn recording a bunch of stuff, a bunch of sounds that were going across the ocean floor. In fact, they were using a distinct form of equipment called equatorial hydrophane arrays, which you're looking at here. These are really cool. It seems like they just basically float either on the top of the ocean or if they're anchored down on the bottom of the ocean. And then they'll be able to capture anything that's recorded throughout the ocean seas. So it could be something distinguished like in terms of a ship, or it could be something in terms of another mammal. Everyone, I'm sure, has already been categorized, like all the animals there, to help distinguish, what they are. But something was caught for at least 15 seconds that still to this day, there's a lot of mystery surrounding, although there may be a true real-life answer tied to it too, which I'll highlight here in a minute. But yes, this sound was captured for 15 seconds, and when it was done so, even, and I'll include the link for it below here too if you want to hear the original recording, it's something that's apparently tied to a living creature. If that's the case, then this is something, the way it sounds, the way it, I guess, on the spectrogram, the range that it created, and the fact that it was heard for over thousands of miles away, 5,000 to be specific, it would have to be a creature so large it would absolutely dwarf anything and everything that has ever graced this earth. So obviously, like the blue whale is considered the largest living animal ever, even larger than some of the dinosaurs, in fact. And yet this thing would definitely make it look like a minnow. Like, that's a great line, in fact, from Stephen King's The Mist. If you've ever seen that movie or read the short story, you realize that they encounter a creature at the end that is so large, the main character, David Drayton, says it makes a blue whale look like a minnow. This would definitely be the case here. So whatever this sound was that was recorded, it lasted 15 seconds. I highly recommend clicking the link below if you want to hear it. Turn up your headphones too. Imagine this coming across the ocean floor and you happen to be somewhere far away or near it. Kind of creepy when I heard it. But yes, it still remains mysterious as to what truly caused it, because it would absolutely be humongous. In fact, you're looking at a very, very nice size comparison chart here. You know how much I love these particular pics. I post them all the time, not just on my YouTube channel, but also on my Facebook site as well. And you'll see that there's some regular artifacts, like regular locations and buildings that people know. And then there's Bloop himself. Bloop, my very first creature that I've ever talked about. You'll see that he in turn trounces all the other ones. And then there's Julia. There's Julia, many more times larger than Bloop, and quite possibly nothing larger than this ever, either now or in the future. And it's apparently somewhere out there, still roaming the ocean floors specifically. Unfortunately, again, there's no details as to how on Earth it would have looked like, let alone any kind of visual inspections. So everything is just purely up to the imagination. But again, considering the spectrogram, the way it recorded, the analysis of it, the location, how far away it was when it was recorded, it all points that if this was truly a living thing, it would be the biggest thing ever on Earth. Absolutely gigantic. And that's what makes it so fascinating. That's why I love this kind of stuff. I mean, this would be something that would truly be a monster of monsters, a king of monsters, to highlight a little slogan from Godzilla. And yet there it is on the ocean floor. Now, as far as the location of it, you'll see it here. Apparently this has been pinpointed as being the exact location it was found, probably just a little bit west of Chile, for lack of a better location. But interestingly enough, get this, this is also apparently the same location, or very near it, that Bloop was encountered too. So again, you're looking at the current location that Julia was found, and then now look at this. This is another one that shows where Bloop may have been recorded. This is fascinating stuff, because what a weird coincidence, no? Here you have two gigantic creatures, and yet they're both pretty much in that same area. Why would that be? Why would there be such a coincidence? Out of all of Earth, here you have these two gigantic creatures now there within that same area. Obviously, they'll still be hundreds of miles apart, but still, the whole idea is it's quite random, quite a coincidence. No, that everything just happens to be there. By the way, I have no idea why it's called Julia. I was trying to see more information on it. What a random name as well. Speaking of random, when it comes to that name being assigned, like, why wasn't it called Gargantua or Titan or something else, right? All of a sudden, whoever decided to list that spectrogram for whatever reason stated it as Julia, but who knows? That's just something else I wanted to point out too. But yes, these two locations are there, and yet here in all of the entire planet, you have them localized at that area. Now, as far as real world explanations and what could be the origin of Julia, it again ties into Bloop. This is why I was mentioning earlier, this is like almost like a perfect sequel to my first video, because there's so much stuff that parallels between each other. It could be nothing else than icebergs. Once again, everything else involving this large, huge, gigantic sound that was mysteriously captured across the ocean floor could be nothing else than ice fracturing, or there's another specific term for it too, and that's a term that's tied to, let's say, an iceberg dragging itself across the sea bed. So very fascinating stuff when I was reading this information, because who knew, even though icebergs move about in a very slow fashion, they still create apparently a lot of damage across the ocean floor. The term is called actually ice gouging, and the way it works is when something separates, like let's say an iceberg separates from its larger self, or who knows, it's just floating out there on its own throughout the ocean floor, there's the bottom part of it that's known as the keel. This is, of course, the one that's really the most dangerous one. It's the one that truly claimed the life of everyone there on the Titanic. So this keel is drifting out along with the top portion of the iceberg. This keel is many times larger traditionally than the top portion, but whenever it comes across a shallower portion of the ocean floor, this keel will in turn drag itself. Just imagine, like anything else, take anything and drag it across the ground right now, like take a rock or take a stick, anything else that you can imagine, and just move it across the ground until you reach a hill or until it gets to a lower portion, a shallower portion, and then you'll see what I mean. That's essentially what's happening on the ocean floor, but on a much larger portion. So when this happens, there's a sound that's made. as far as this iceberg dragging itself across the seabed. I can just imagine how terrifyingly loud that sound would be. Here you have something like these pics you're looking at now. These are true life examples of ice gouging. You can see that there's many, like hundreds of miles almost, that seems to be created from this. Anything caught within its path would basically be obliterated. Who knows how eventually, as far as the seabed, there's probably a pressure point where there's just so much enough material there caught on the keel that it's not going to move any further. So something will either break away, or it'll stay there, or it'll push through what's considered that mound. And then when that happens, then it'll go on its merry little path. But again, the sounds associated with it, that's essentially what Julia could be from. So here you have a gigantic iceberg that probably was seen or not seen all the way down there, again, towards the west side of Chile. And then there it was, somehow getting caught within some kind of portion of the seabed as far as its keel, and then that was it that created the sound. So that's more of a real world explanation. That ties in again into BLOOP, because BLOOP has either been described as being that similar sound, or of having ice fracturing. That's where the actual sound of icebergs actually crack and then they move away from each other. Tremendous sound as well. You can catch that stuff on YouTube as far as people capturing those clips too. So that again could be another real world explanation, but they both heavily, in this case, parallel each other. But that's pretty much it as far as all the information associated with Julia. Is it truly a real life monster? Something out there is living in this world, living on the seabed floor, potentially moving about? And if it is, it's truly the largest creature ever on Earth. If so, that'd be interesting to see if it ever makes its appearance sometime in the future. Or is it something else in terms of an actual real life occurrence, like something else as far as the ice gouging? That's still left up to the side as far as you and I. I wanted to also mention this. There's this photograph that was apparently captured by satellites. I wanted to say this for last only because it's supposedly the actual location, like something of Julia itself, like a large shadow was caught almost on top of this sea, like in terms of something just right underneath the sea, but not necessarily above it. So it wasn't breaking the waves or breaking the sea itself. But yes, something was apparently caught moving about by these satellites. I don't know. This one looks weird. Like it doesn't ring as it doesn't look true. It doesn't look like it's a real photo, in other words. So that's why I wanted to save it for last. But still, I wanted to present all angles here. But this was apparently a satellite image that was captured of Julia somewhere up there. Who knows like when this was captured? I didn't see a date on it, but somewhere up there in one of the satellites, that's where he or she, as far as Julia, was truly captured. But if anyone has any more info, anything else I might have missed, please post those comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are as far as this creature potentially being, again, largest creature ever on this planet. Thank you again, as always, everyone. Take care.